Welcome to the Living Superhuman Fitness Podcast, where we take you inside our gym, CrossFit Palm Beach, each week. It's here that we are creating new superhumans every day, transforming people's lives, helping them reach a level of health they never knew possible. We strive to answer your most burning questions on fitness, health, nutrition, training, motivation, mindset, lifestyle, and more. If you have a question, please email us at info@crossfitpalmbeach.com. You can also learn more on our blog, livingsuperhuman.com. And if you have a moment, we'd love a review from you on iTunes. All right, it's time. Let's stop being average and start living superhuman. Hey guys, welcome to the Living Superhuman Fitness Podcast. My name is Andrew Frezza, and today I'm joined by
Katie Richardson,
Tony Frezza,
Whitney Stevenson.
And today we're going to be talking about our top 10 favorite books, and favorite books specifically for athletes and CrossFit Palm Beach members out there, books that have had a big impact on the four of us, and that we feel like you guys will get the most impact in your lives, in your training, and in your entire lives outside the gym. So, this really derives from us having a core value around a growth mindset and always wanting to learn and grow and constantly seek out mentors, new knowledge, new techniques, ways that we can improve. So we like sharing book ideas, podcast ideas with each other, and we wanted to kind of give some to you guys today. So we're just going to kind of go around. We'll hit on some of these books that we've got a stack here if you're watching the video. We'll hit on some of the books. We'll talk about what our biggest takeaways have been with it. We'll talk about also what we think you guys will get out of it and what type of person out there will get the most out of it, whether it be someone who's brand new to CrossFit or Beach Fit, someone who's been here a while but is kind of in a rut, or whatever it might be that we think you'll benefit from it. So, Tony, you're going to kick it off. What do we got?
All right. We'll kick it off with Mindset by Carol Dweck. It's right here on the top of the stack. The New Psychology of Success. I've read this about two years ago now, and just through other books that I've read, podcasts I've listened to, everyone keeps coming back to this book. And just the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, the abundance mentality versus the scarcity mentality, and just how that plays into our lives. So just a really great book for really anyone, but I think people who are in the business of coaching. So this is something we bought for all the coaches, and whenever a new coach comes in, we got to give it to them, because they got to have that growth mindset, not only for themselves, but for their members, for their clients, to see their growth, see the path to growth. So coaches, if anybody's a parent or an educator, could really help them as well. If you're helping others get better and helping them see growth, not only yourself, then it's a really valuable book.
Yeah, it is kind of like a scholarly book too. It's not like, you're not going to blow through it like maybe some of the other books when you're reading. But I think it just gives you example after example of how mindset is something that you can work on, and you can grow it to how you want it to be, I guess. You might have a certain mindset that you were raised with, but that doesn't mean that you're stuck with it forever. Mm-hmm. You can change it, which is really cool. That was the most eye-opening part to me, is that that it was something that I could continue to work on and change and get better at. And it just has example after example of how that works. I don't know, I read it about 2 years ago too, and I think we all read it as coaches. Yeah.
The one that sticks out to me with this is the parenting side. And now that I'm saying this, I'm like, man, I have to reread it now that Cooper's getting to be almost 2 years old. And specifically in the way you talk to kids or anybody, not just kids, but it's really important with kids because you're ingraining this habit is rewarding and recognizing the work that they put in rather than the result that they're creating. So when someone does really good in school, someone gets an A on a test, or they score 3 goals in a soccer game, you're not congratulating them for scoring 3 goals or getting an A. You're recognizing what kind of work went in. Hey, you did a really good job in practice, or you did a really good job putting in extra work with your studies. And look at this, look what happened as a part of it. If you keep that up, you can accomplish anything. So you're really keeping the focus always on the process and the effort rather than the end result. Cool. Anybody else that you think is a good fit for, or you want to move on to the second book?
I mean, especially teachers. I think this would be a
Yeah.
really good book. I'm sure that a lot of teachers have read it, but just dealing with the different types of kids and different types of mindsets that you're going to have in your classroom, and also your own mindset around dealing with the different kind of kids that you're working with. I think it would really, speak to you because it is more of like a scholarly book, and then B, you be able to kind of apply it really easily in your classroom setting.
Cool. So we're going to go on to book number 2, and this was our second book club book. We just finished our third one last night, and that is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. McKeown.
Just say it quick.
Is he British?
No one will know.
Yes. Okay. So this was a cool book in the sense that for me, one of the big benefits was the value in saying no to things, in that I think a lot of us have negativity around the word no and letting people down, especially with like events we've been asked to attend, or we get emails throughout the day and we feel obligated to kind of do stuff for other people all the time, and what happens is we never actually do the thing that we really want to do. So I think the biggest thing I got out of it was permission to say no when it was appropriate to do bigger and better things, and to focus your attention on things that are going to really change your life long term.
I really loved that idea they kept putting forth of saying no to the little things opens you up to say yes to the big things. And it was something I didn't realize until I was booking myself so thin that all of a sudden my nieces are like, "Oh, Aunt Katie, can you come to our Christmas recital?" And I'm like, "Oh, no," because I was now no longer given the choice because I'd already committed myself to all of these things, that now this thing came that was so important to me that I couldn't say yes to because I had committed myself to these things that I didn't care as much about, but I didn't have that awareness to say, no, this is not serving me, this is not moving me forward, this is not, what I need to be doing right now. And then the choice was taken away when something I actually wanted to do came up.
Yeah, this book really speaks to the person that thinks they can do all things, and maybe you can do all things, but if you cut out the things low on the list, you can do the things at the top of the list even better.
Yeah, I heard an Oprah quote on that one time, which is like, you can do everything, or you can do anything, just not all at once. And you kind of have to you really can achieve so many different things in so many areas, but you almost have to layer them in different times of your life and focus on one thing at a time or two things at a time and kind of build on it, and it compounds over time.
Yeah. I like how it also gives you value to the things that you do say yes to. Like, you start to respect and value your own time because you're saying no to certain things and yes to certain things. Because you're doing that, inevitably the people around you will start to respect and value your time as well, because it will mean more. It'll be like, well, she doesn't show up or he doesn't show up to these things, but he came to this, so it really must mean something. So now all of a sudden other people are respecting and valuing your time more, which is essentially what you want, because you're valuing it more. So it's almost like your no gives your yes more value in the long run. And then, like Katie was saying, your no in that moment can be a yes to something later down in the line. So maybe don't get caught up in the 30 minutes of feeling bad about saying no to somebody, because you'll be able to do something for them, later on, bigger and better, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I see this applying, I definitely see this applying primarily in a work environment, in your career, if you're a business owner, stuff like that. But I also see it in the gym sense of a lot of us can't find the time to get in the gym. We can't find the time to meal prep and eat healthy. And that is the most important thing. You don't have your health, you can't do the other things. Mm-hmm. You might be able to do it for a short period of time. And that's really the essential idea of essentialism, is put the first things first. Health has to go first. And if you're not finding time for those things, you need to say no to some things to make some time for that.
Yeah, it definitely helps you get a better blueprint for maybe achieving a goal or achieving something that you want, and being clear on that. Like you're talking about food prepping, and you could have all these books about how to food prep and what you want to eat, but legit, if you don't have the right Tupperware or ingredients or things to cook with to begin with, you're not going to be able to even do what it says in the book. So it kind of it kind of helps you cut out the clutter. And it uses example like cutting out the clutter, like literally in your closet. But it's one of those trickle down effects. Like you do it in one part of your life, you're going to start doing it in others. So, yeah, I think anyone can benefit from that. But especially if you find yourself like super busy, glued to your phone, your calendar's totally stock full, and maybe you're just not feeling, happy with how things are going. Like pick this book up and start to integrate small pieces of it.
You're a hoarder.
Yeah, you're a hoarder.
You're kind of like a minimalist book in a way.
I think I'm a hoarder with my appointments in my calendar. It just keeps sticking ones in there.
All right, next book. Book number 3 is going to be The Obstacle is the Way. And this is our first book club book and chosen by Whitney. So Whitney, why'd you choose it as the first book club book? What was your biggest takeaway from this book?
Just the shift in perspective, and then this book has like a collection, or is a collection of examples of kind of like great leaders and how so many years ago in our history, these leaders were like looking at obstacles and actually like turning them into a way to kind of conquer their goal or get over the hump, or they weren't looking at it as an obstacle, but a way to make themselves or their team or their army like better. And for a lot of us, especially for me, I notice when I have an obstacle, that's not like my initial reaction. My initial reaction is like, oh, F, like why? And I didn't like that about my perspective, and I really enjoyed reading this so I could see an obstacle, because life is full of obstacles. We're not gonna like just kind of smoothly like skate through the rest of our lives. And I wanted to be able to have a perspective about them that wasn't that OFY, and I think that this book really kind of, it gives you a way to see obstacles as something to make you better. So whenever you do come across one, you become more excited about it. Like, oh, now I really do have an opportunity to change or make this better, or maybe look inward and find out that this isn't really the path I want to take and take another path. So for me, that was sort of why I chose it, because I was being selfish and I wanted to have this like better perspective, and then through reading it I knew it was going to affect and help other people. And I'm a big fan of the other book underneath here that same author wrote and put together about Stoic philosophies, and it kind of ties into The Obstacle is the Way. So I know you guys read it too.
Yeah, and it was cool when we did The Obstacle is the Way in book club how many of our female athletes resonated with it.
Yeah.
Because it comes off as kind of like a very manly book, like, oh, the obstacle's away, and like it's all about Stoic philosophy, which is also has like a masculine tone to it, until you read it, until you apply it to your life, and then it can be for anyone, which I think that was a great message you got across through the book club with that book. And yeah, we saw a lot of people just saying, we had one lady quit her job, and
Yeah.
you know, like, so.
Yeah, I love that it's got this timelessness to it, and I think Marcus Aurelius is the big one, right? And I think Thomas Edison is in that one as well, or maybe he's in a different Ryan Holiday book, but it's very principle based, and it gives you a lot of actionable stuff, but it's coming from the standpoint of like, these people don't know it all. And
Yeah.
like Marcus Aurelius is like figuring it out on the fly as he's like emperor of, like the biggest country at the time. And it's just crazy that, I mean, there's actual stuff that you can learn from it, but it's a relief to know that these people don't have it figured out, and they're figuring out, and they're using obstacles to be introspective and make themselves better.
Yeah, and not just like small obstacles, like they're using like loss of a war,
Right.
obstacles, or loss of a battle during a war, or even death of a family member, loss of a loved one. There's examples in there of big obstacles, that could really put someone, in a rut for years, and it's turning it on its head and figuring out how, not to say like, oh, this isn't a big deal, but how to make this big deal that could really like put you in a rut, something that can make you better, which is amazing to have that perspective, especially when it comes to something like a big loss like that, or what you would consider a big loss, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, let's move on to book number 4, which is Chasing Excellence by Ben Bergeron. And then we also have, kind of on the same token, How Champions Think by Bob Rotella. So Tony, you want to take the lead on this one?
Sure. Yeah, Chasing Excellence by Coach Ben Bergeron of CrossFit New England is a really great look into his experience with coaching Katrin and Matt at the CrossFit Games, and then inserting the lessons that they learned along the way. You know, they didn't really know the lessons until they got into the games and learned these things and got to show you firsthand how they applied them and how it kind of hit them in the face at the same time. It was a really cool look. So I think if you're a fan of CrossFit and kind of know these people, it was a really cool read. And even if you don't like CrossFit, you know, you still get a lot out of it. And then with the How Champions Think, it's a little more in-depth, a little more for like the coach, I'd say, or the box owner, someone that liked that book but wants just a little bit more substance behind it.
Yeah, or more competitive athlete too, I think would be a good fit for that.
Yeah. I think I read, Chasing Excellence in like a flight. Like
Yeah,
I literally read
it's
it
such a
on a
good
plane.
read.
It's really quick and it's very like, you're just turning the pages the whole time. I think my biggest takeaway from that, and I had it put on like our regional shirt, was just you don't become a champion and then just start thinking like one. And I think a lot of us like wait for this moment, like, oh, I'm gonna wait till I get $1 million, or I'm gonna wait until, I reach the top and then I'm gonna start living my life differently. And like, to be honest, like you're probably never gonna get to the top if you don't make those changes and like almost live into that existence before it happens. And that was like a big shift for me. I was like, wow, like if I wanna be or act or achieve this certain goal, like I wanna live into those actions and those habits every single day and love that process, no matter if I like really ever get there or not. And like, I think that's something I really resonated with and I've really kind of just lived into pretty much every day since I read that saying. I mean, I had it on our t-shirt, so.
Yeah.
And that's something that they really talk about in the book. They talk about their process and loving it, and they even mention, like, we don't talk about going to the games, we don't talk about this like end goal, because we're so hyper focused on the process and being in the moment and staying in the moment, which I think is like super important, whether you're an athlete or entrepreneur or parent. Like, you know, those moments are so much more valuable than kind of whatever happens in the long run.
Yeah, I could see where like someone who's wanting like a promotion at work, it's like they're waiting for this big break to happen instead of being the person that would be key in that role, and then just, you know, they're undeniable to their, you know, higher ups and their superiors in the sense of they're already living these actions that they want, right? So I think exactly what you're saying, Whitney. It's like, become the person, don't wait for the big break, create it for yourself, and become so good that it can't be denied.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm gonna wait till I get my raise and then work harder.
Right.
You know, like work harder, and then, you know, your work and your worth is gonna be undeniable. You're gonna get the raise, or you're gonna get a better job. You know, like something else will come out of it. So, for sure.
All right, well, let's move on to number 5. And this is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And also, too, there's another book that honorable mention, Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. So Tony just read Atomic Habits. He did a really good post about it as well. So tell us a little bit about it, Tony.
Yeah, so this is a new one that just came out. So maybe a possible book club books in the future.
Maybe.
Possibly.
See if it makes the cut. Stakes are high.
But I think like habit books in general kind of come off very boring. You know, it's like, I got good habits. Like, what do I need help with? And two of the biggest takeaways for me in Atomic Habits was, one, like kind of along the lines of the compound effect of like how small, minute things that seem very unimportant in the moment add up to really big things in a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, right? You can barely even see them, but they're going to make a big difference over time. And the other thing would be the identity piece. Like, someone says, you know, I just want to lose like 20 pounds, and it's like, but they'll always have the identity of someone that goes out 5 times a week. Like, that's their identity of a partier, and they're not willing to give up that identity to become the fit person in the gym that they say they want to be. So when it comes to like who I would hand this book to, or who I would give this to, it'd probably be like that weekend warrior that like thinks they have like great habits, and they're like, yeah, I come to the gym like 4 times a week, and it's like, but that was also met with like 4 nights of going out to the bar. Like, and what if it was like 3 nights going out to the bar, and 6 days in the gym. Like, yeah, you wouldn't tell in 1 week what that could do, but over the span of a year or 2 years, like that would be huge.
Yeah, we're seeing it with our nutrition program now. The one-on-one nutrition program is people don't feel like they're being perfect. They still feel like they're having times where they're going off track, and then 30 days in, they're like, all right, it was a small difference. 90 days in, it's like, holy crap, that is a big difference. And you project that after 6 months, a year, 5 years, it's a different person, right? What was a smoking example from the book? I like that one because I think a lot of people here aren't smokers, so it's easier for them to see it from that perspective.
Yeah, so in the book he talks about, like, say there's like a pack of cigarettes on a table, and there's a person sitting there and you offer them a cigarette and they say, oh, no thank you, that's okay. If they're a smoker, that's really hard to say no. They're like, no, that's that's okay, I'll pass.
Or a former smoker.
Yeah, or even a former smoker. Or they tried it once and they have a good memory behind it. But then if the person there says, oh, no, that's okay, I don't smoke, or I'm not a smoker, or I've never been a smoker, that's a different identity, right? So it doesn't even hit the brain the same way that question hit with the person that has tried it and liked it before.
And there's no willpower required.
None.
Yeah, you just make that decision ahead of time. Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, little things that stuck out to me when I read The Compound Effect. I haven't gotten to Atomic Habits yet, but it was like things like on your drive to work, do you listen to podcasts and audiobooks, or do you listen to the news, right? After 6 months, you will not notice the difference between those two people who listen to a podcast and who listen to the news. After 5 years, you will notice a difference. Something's going to be different about that person, but it gives you confidence that little things being present make a big difference, which I love. Cool. All right, let's go on to number 6, Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, and also Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss, which are very similar books. So Katie, I'll let you take the lead on these two.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know who Tim Ferriss is, he has a podcast and interviews a lot of influencers, whether they're online or media influencers, or scientists, or doctors, or professional athletes, or I'm missing like entrepreneurs. He interviews everyone, people who are the top 1% of whatever it is that their craft is. He has gotten them on his show and he has interviewed them. And Tribe of Mentors and Tools of Titans are basically, he asks them all a couple very similar questions, and he's compiled all of those here. And it's almost something, if you wanted to read, I was basically reading 1 or 2 pages a day of 1 or 2 of those interviews a day in the morning, and it was just kind of my morning shot of excellence, of these are those habits that these people do every day that they feel have moved the needle in some way into making them as successful as they are. And I thought it was really cool because you see these people who almost all of them have some kind of mindfulness practice. Almost all of them are very mindful in some way to their nutrition. So regardless of what that looks like, they all have a system that they stick to, and it's a routine that is something that they attribute to being a part of their success.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of these 2 books. The one thing the concept that always sticks out to me with these books and Tim's podcast is he talks about all the time is you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And essentially what Tim has enabled us to do is to be able to spend time with the top people in the world of all fields and learn from them without having to have a friendship or relationship with them. And I think that's a really cool shift that's happened in the last 10 to 15 years is we have so much more access to these really successful people that you wouldn't have had before. And now, like, yes, it does matter who you're friends with and who you surround yourself with at work, but if you're spending your time in the car and your downtime at home reading these books, you're going to be essentially spending time and learning from the top people in the world.
Yeah, I think what's really cool about them, they're really big books.
They're
I don't know if you can see, they're like this thick. You don't have to read like the whole thing, which I really like. And you can kind of pick the book up at any place. You can literally just open the book because it's just collections of answers to these questions. So
what are some of your favorite questions in there?
I mean, my favorite question is, what is your biggest failure? I always, I try to read those. I think it's almost answered by every single one. And all of the ones that I've read I haven't read Tools of Titans, but I've read Tribe of Mentors. there's like 360 people in there. They all their biggest failures led to their biggest success. So that kind of actually inspired me for the obstacle is the way, and like creating this mindset around like being happy with a failure, or like chasing down failure, like trying to fail to lead me to a bigger or greater success. And then the other thing I really like about them is that fact, like you can open it at any page. You could literally treat this like medicine, like an Advil.
Yeah.
Like if you're struggling or having like a hard day, like I know like I'll like just open it up to any page and just read it. It starts to get me out of my own head and like into another person's very real, maybe even similar journey. And then it's I don't know, it's almost, to me, we always talk about like food and exercise as medicine. I think books in a certain way can be also a form of medicine, especially something like this where you don't have to read it front to back. You can just kind of open it at any page and get something good out of it.
Yeah,
You gave me that book, by the way.
It was your Christmas
Yes,
present.
you gave it to me.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best books for that. Another really great book for that is our next book, which is The Daily Stoic. And who wants to take that? Tony, you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, I think talking about how you start your day, like Katie was saying, like get a morning routine that involves Tools of Titans and the Daily Stoic. If you could read, 5 to 10 minutes. So that's what the Daily Stoic is once every day. There's a different passage and then just a little blurb that Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman has put together. And you can see it.
Yeah, it usually starts with a quote at the top, and then you have a kind of a paragraph to kind of turn it into New English.
Yeah. It kind of it's like the Reader's Digest version, what I just read, and then okay, what that actually means.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, if it wasn't deciphered there into modern English, it would be kind of tough to read, but that's what makes it really good. And then I also personally have been journaling this whole year with the Daily Stoic Journal, along with reading it. So the passages of the translation really help to journal, because you're like, I don't know what that meant. You're like, what does he mean? But Ryan Holiday really does a good job of breaking it down.
Yeah, I think this is a great book for someone who is like waking up scattered and they don't really have anything, and maybe they're just like, they're just they don't know where to start. Their day is just being thrown at them. It's such a quick read, and it kind of like toughens you up a little bit, gets you in the right frame of mind, and it's so easy to read.
yeah, I would say like if you keep thinking that life is happening to you, or you're like a victim of life, like these things keep happening to you, this is a really, really good book to read, and it helps you get like a little bit of more ownership over your own life, where you don't necessarily feel like such like a victim of life, but kind of like how to navigate it a little bit better. What are these people called?
Oh.
The Star Trek people? They're like very,
Our cameraman knows it.
No.
No,
So like Trekkies.
But they have like a very stoic way of being, like I don't know what they are. Anyways, the Trekkie people, the Star Trekkies. But they have a very stoic way of being, where they're not ruled by necessarily like emotions or these events of life that are happening. They're able to kind of see them very clearly and logically, and they have a reasonable action for them. And I think that the Daily Stoic helps you kind of break that down in your own life, to have like this non-emotional reaction to something, but more of a response to, the day-to-day events.
It definitely sets your tone too.
Yeah.
Like it definitely sets you in that mindset for the rest of your day, and then the rest of your day things will come up and life throws things at you and you're like, no, actually I'm okay because I don't know, Ryan Holiday told me so.
Yeah, it's funny, every day is a little bit different, but almost every day you live, you're able to take that day's thing and apply it. It's
every
pretty good.
time.
Yeah, and it changes. Every month, I think, has a little bit of a different. I know, like the last month of the
it's
year
a little dark.
is a little dark. It's about like mortality and death, but being okay with it, and how we could literally all leave in any second, which is
Great way to
also
get you
very
in the Christmas
valuable,
spirit.
but very contradicting the Christmas spirit.
All right, number 8 is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero? So, Katie, tell us a little bit about this book.
Oh gosh, I'm about to get really way too hyped for this book. Whit knows because I've walked in the house and I'm like, I am manifesting. And so basically, this book, it started off and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna get really crunchy and like super hippy dippy. And sure enough, I am a hippie now because I am manifesting this.
Crystal necklace.
My crystal necklace. And it's the entirety of the book is getting over each of our own big snoozes or our BS of why we can't be successful in the gym, why we aren't successful at work, why we aren't successful at relationships, why we can't make money. And basically kind of turning that on its head and really opening up to how powerful the universe, God, the higher power, whatever it is that you reach out to is, and how it's conspiring to help you. And it's something that Sarah, when I'm coaching lacrosse, I'm like, the other people I'm with all the time. We talk a lot about, speaking things into existence and really believing it and planning for great things to happen. And this book really, really reaffirmed that in my mind of plan for amazing things to happen. And you don't just wish for things to happen. You don't go, oh, I hope this weekend is a success, or I hope this event is a success. It's, this event is going to be a success, and I'm speaking this into existence. Now, let's figure out how to make this event a success, because I've said it. I've said it out loud. I've said it to multiple people now who are like, okay, you better make it a success because you told me it's going to be a success. And it almost holds you accountable in a way, because now you are really, I now really believe in this idea of, speak things into existence, speak things into happening, in the sense of you're almost accountable because you've said it out loud. And you're like, okay, I've said this. I better figure out a way to do this. And it's definitely shifted my mindset, and things that I would sit there and think of like, oh, I'm bad at relationships. I'm like, dude, you never take the time to go meet people. And, this idea of, I can't wait to read her You're a Badass with Money, because that's the next one, because that resonated with me in a huge way and changed my mindset about money. So I'm in love with this book and obsessed with it, and we'll gift it to probably everyone this year.
Nikki and I listened to the audiobook for this book, and it's a really good audiobook. I haven't read the actual book, but my feeling is that get the audiobook if you have a choice between the two, because she reads it and she's good. I think it's a really good book for women, especially. I think men will like it. I liked it, but I think especially women will like it. And I think someone who's earlier in their journey, who needs a little bit more kick in the ass to get started, it's probably, if I were to compare it to our other books, it's the most rah motivational, but that's not a bad thing. And she's really good at it, and giving you then some action steps to go with it. So I like it. I was a big fan of the book. All right, let's go on to number 9. Number 9, we're gonna go back to Katie for The Hard Hat by John Gordon.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, my alter ego is also a teenage girls lacrosse coach. So that's what I'm doing when I'm not here.
Aren't we all?
Cue up the kilt too. And The Hard Hat was actually required reading for a couple of our teams that we had given to our players, and I hadn't read it, so I'm sitting there while all my players are reading it on the bus, and I'm reading it on the bus. Man, this is awesome! And I'm sitting there, I have dozens of pages of notes from this book, and it's essentially 21 ways to be a great teammate. And it's all about this guy, George Boyardi, who was a Cornell lacrosse player, and he passed away in a lacrosse accident. And it came out years later when John Gordon was interviewing his family, interviewing his teammates, interviewing his coaches, interviewing his community members, what was so special about George? Because he was remembered and still is remembered as a key fixture at Cornell. The hard hat lives on. And the idea was he was the embodiment of a great teammate. And, there's 21 ways essentially to be a great teammate. And I think the last one is probably the one that I try and take on whenever possible, because I think the other 20 kind of fall into it, and it's leave it better than you found it. And it's this idea of leave any place, any team, any job, any group, community, anything you do, leave it better than you found it. Leave a person better than you found them. And I think that if you go into your life with nothing but that of I'm going to leave this person I'm interacting with, I'm going to leave this space better than I found it, then you're going to live a very positive life, and you're going to be someone who people look to, respect, and trust. And you are essentially a great teammate if that's the mindset you go into it with.
Cool. I'm excited. I haven't read it yet,
Yeah.
so I'm really excited to read it. And do you guys?
I haven't read it.
Okay, cool.
I've not read it, but yeah.
We're going to defer to you on this one, but you did a good job. Cool. So we're going to go.
Take your word for it.
10th and final book is our book club book we just finished up with, Living with the Seal by Jesse Itzler. Whit, tell us about Living with the Seal.
Oh my gosh. This is such a fun book.
What's the premise first? Because I don't know if everyone even knows it. They think it's like a guy living with like animals out in
He's not living with like animals from the zoo or the singer. He's living with an actual
Singer
seal.
from the 90s.
So, and the guy is not just an average guy either. He is probably multi-millionaire, if not close to billionaire.
Probably combined income with his wife.
Combined income with his family.
Billionaires.
His name is Jesse Itzler, and he's a wacko. He's awesome. He's written other books as well. He just lived with monks, so check that one out too if you're interested in that. But he was years ago, probably almost 10 at this point, was running a 100-mile relay race back in the day when these ultras were just sort of starting. There wasn't like this big group of people doing them. And so he was on a relay, and then there was like a man set up next to him who was doing the whole 100 miles on his own, which was sort of unheard of at the time. And he was so intrigued by him and interested in him, he kind of followed up, cold called him, figured out he was a Navy SEAL, and then wanted to actually like meet with him. He's like, I'm gonna fly out tomorrow, I'll meet with you. Flew out literally the next day after they had this phone conversation, talked with him some more, and then went back home, talked to his wife, and then called him up again, was like, will you come live with us? Like, will you come stay with me? And SEAL at that moment was like, I don't know, like he didn't really want to take money. And then he was like, if you do everything I say for 30 days, I will do it. Like if you are loyal to what I am telling you to do, I will do it. And then so SEAL comes, he starts living with him, and then the book basically is his blog collection or like stories of these 30 days. So he talks about how many, like the workouts they did that day, how many push-ups they've done, what time he's waking up when he's interacting with SEAL. And it's his story of literally living with him and having SEAL be his trainer, but also his shadow for those 30 days, and how it impacted and literally changed his life forever. And it's hysterical. There's a lot of cussing in it, so be aware.
Short read, so
but
fast.
It's so fast, it goes by really quick, and it kind of just brings perspective into kind of the limitations that we place on ourselves and how to break through them, how to have like a better relationship with that voice in our head that tells us to stop or we're not good enough, and almost replace that. Some of us have replaced it with SEAL, which I think is kind of a good thing. And then I don't know, I enjoyed it. We had really good conversation about it last night at book club, just about SEAL himself, because he does dance on that line of like insanity and craziness because he's such a hard ass. But that's how he lives his life, kind of without any care that other people have for it. Like that's how he enjoys his life. And we just took away some lessons, not only from SEAL, but also from Jesse too. So it's a really good read. I don't know if you guys have anything to add right now.
I have two big takeaways.
Yeah.
One, and this kind of goes back to essentialism, like for SEAL, my biggest takeaway was how simple he keeps his life. And he's able to train this hard because of this simplicity he's created. And he's decided on something that's really essential to him, which is cool. And then when it comes to Jesse, what I really like, and I also kind of did some follow-up on both people, so some of this might be from after the book, but Jesse talks about like life moments or life memories. And it's like what Jesse went through. When you're reading the book, it seems kind of like hell. It seems like a long time. It's only 30 days. This was a small portion of his life, but he creates these moments for his life. that he designs for himself that are going to challenge him, that are going to get him out of his comfort zone, right? You're talking about he's living with monks. Like, he does these things once or twice a year, every year. And I think most of us don't commit to stuff because we think it's going to be too much or take too long of a time. And like 30 days flies by like that. And like, you know, one of our takeaways from the book club was giving people a 30-day habits chart that they could fill out and something they could commit to for 30 days. And it might be super uncomfortable to do something for 30 days, but I would challenge a lot of you guys to commit to something for 30 days because it's going to go by like that. You're going to wake up and it's going to be January 1st or February 1st, and it's going to pass without you doing something really cool. So why not do something really cool in that time?
Yeah. Another one of my favorite themes in the book that doesn't really come up super strong, but it came up strong for me just because I resonate with it, was how Seal is able to be in the moment and also see like the bigger picture at the same time. He is in a meeting with Jesse and they're taking a break from the meeting to like check emails or something, and Seal confronts him about like they didn't complete their workout, and Seal feels incomplete, like we need to do sit-ups right now. And Jesse's like, I'm in the middle of a meeting. And he's like, no, you're not, you're in the middle of a break. And I was like, oh my God, that is so true. Like, he wasn't in the middle of a meeting. Like, yeah, the meeting was going on, but in that moment, he was in the middle of a break. And it just, to me, it just, I don't know, I resonated with that, like really being true to the moment that you are in and how valuable that is. Because Seal was able to value time like to the millisecond. And then they were able to get so much accomplished and so much done. So that was just another theme. It kind of weaves its way throughout the book that I really liked. So it's a good one. Pick it up.
Cool. So that wraps up our list. Before we go, I just want to hit on book club and talk about what that is, since 3 of these books were in our book club, and a lot of people have heard us talking about it, but they maybe don't understand what we actually do in there. So, you want to give us a little rundown of how it's how does a meeting go? What does it look like?
So we have book club. We go over one book. We have about 5 to 6 weeks per book that we spend reading it. I usually will post a blog post about the book with some themes that we'll talk about in the book club. So you can come feeling somewhat prepared. However, if you're not prepared, that's no big deal. You don't get like shamed for not reading the book. It's not one of those book clubs where I'm like, on page 39, what did the main character say? Blah, blah, blah. It's not like that at all. It's really just a place to gather and be in community with one another. We bring food. We start off the meeting usually by just getting a plate of food or a bowl. You can bring a scale if you're counting macros, whatever you want. Most of the dishes are usually healthy. So you get food, we sit down. I kind of have some themes written up on the whiteboard, and then I kind of guide the meeting. We do a little breakout session or kind of just get to know each other session or question. And then usually we break up into 2 groups or a few groups to kind of talk about specific questions. And then we all kind of share our answers with each other. And then we talk about the next book. We'll either vote on the book if I'm torn between which one I want to choose next, or sometimes I have one in mind that I really just think will resonate with everyone and I just go for it. So you get the option there. And then we also talk about the next meeting, like the date of the next meeting. So everyone kind of gets to pitch in a little bit and not just feel like, oh, I have to go at this moment in time. So it works for everyone that way. It's really informal, and it's just about like getting to know each other and working on something that's not necessarily fitness related, but health related, as far as like mental health and like growth mindset and getting and being a better human being. Technically outside of the gym, but we're still inside of the gym. Outside of a workout environment, I should say. So yeah, and they're about an hour long. So we'll start around between 7 and 7:15, get our plates, and then we usually wrap up again around 8 or 8:15.
Yeah, I really like it because you get a chance to hear from other people, hear different perspectives. And if you're someone who likes to talk and likes to share, there's a chance to do that.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable doing it, there's a chance to do it in a small group where you might be more comfortable doing it. And if you're someone who's just there to be more observant and you like that part, maybe you haven't read the whole book and you're like, man, I've only read a little bit of it, and you just want to be a part of it, there's a chance to do that and not really have to say much and just kind of take it in.
One of the things that kind of came up for me last night, and I wanted to address, and I'll just talk about it now, is that there really is no like right or wrong. Like everyone's interpretation of the book is allowed. Like some people interpreted last night Seal being, you know, a different kind of human being, and then other people interpreted it differently. And there is no right or wrong. Like, I'm glad that they had maybe an opposing perspective, because it kind of shed light onto some other things that I wasn't really looking at. So no matter what, kind of any interpretation or perspective is welcomed, because it just makes the conversation better.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's it. That's our top 10 books. And join us at the next book club.